All right, good buddies, welcome to a brand new episode of the Jordan J and Buddies podcast. I am back. Here I am talking, ready to bore you once again with my slow monotone voice. But I am joined by the good buddies, of course, my co-host Will.
Yo, I'm here as well.
And Brandon, who's been on them.
Everybody tagging in.
All right, so, first and foremost, this is going to be a spoiler-heavy review of Spider-Man No Way Home. Plenty of spoilers, so if you have not seen it, don't listen. Or if you don't mind it being spoiled, then go for it. But yeah, that's your warning. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so for me, as everyone knows who's listening, I have not been on this thing for a good while. Simply because I've just been, I guess that Marvel kind of fatigue has set in for me, and I was just kind of like, okay, sure, things are coming out. I've been okay with them. I haven't been excited about it until this trailer for this movie came out, and I texted Will. I was like, Will, this is the first time I've had chills for a movie or for an MCU trailer in a long time, yeah. And it felt great. So I'm very happy to be talking about this because, well, I loved this movie. It was good.
It was. I was just so blown away.
Dude, it was
it was the kind of thing where I was like, I didn't think they'd be able to pull this off. This is like a fan fiction, but in a good way. I mean that in the best way possible. Where it's like, what if all of them met up? Like, but that'll never happen. But it did.
Yeah, it was a perfect balance, like of just so many different aspects in it. It blew my mind, and I was expecting a lot. The bar was high, and it still passed it.
Yeah, because going into it, you're like, okay, they might show up. You know, of course, talking about the other two Spider-Men, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, they might show up and like be a little bit in there, kind of maybe towards the end, like for the climactic battle. But they were in it. They were in it for quite a while, and it was really nice to see their little banter and their back and forth.
But they also didn't overstay their welcome. They didn't take the spotlight off of Tom Holland, you know, and that was good. They struck a perfect balance there, I think.
I feel that they were bigger than cameos. We were all expecting like a cameo, like them, like you said, show up in the final battle. But like they were supporting characters. They weren't main characters, but they were definitely pivotal to the storyline. Still, I really liked it.
Oh yeah. And okay, so I haven't been the biggest fan of the Tom Holland movies. I liked Homecoming. I wasn't a big fan of Far From Home. But this, because I love the Raimi Spider-Man movies. Third one, it's okay. it's fine.
They're all great.
Yes, big part of my childhood. I remember sitting in the theater watching the very first one with my mom. I was like, I'm going to date myself. I was like in 6th grade, 7th grade, something like that. But so yeah,
I was
you were
7.
A fetus.
I was 5 when they came out.
I was like 5 or 6.
So that should show you I'm the old man of the group. But yeah, I remember one time too. My mom was like, "Okay, you're grounded. You can't watch TV, or you'll get an hour of TV, or you can watch a movie." I picked Spider-Man every time. I was like, "I want to watch this movie." So, but yeah, and so going into this, I was like, "Okay, I'm still excited," but it was. I finally felt like, okay, this is finally feeling like what it used to be. What I've always liked about Spider-Man was that it was a story of him coming into his own, and that's what it was. Whereas the other ones kind of felt like to me they were always very, hey, remember he was in the Avengers movies? Hey, there's Iron Man. Here's this guy, and it's like, all right, yeah, I remember, I got it. But this, I just felt like it was about him, even though you had the cameos. But it, like you said, it played off of him very well. It let him shine and become a leader and becoming a man.
Yeah, even though we had Toby and Andrew in it for a very hefty amount, he still gets his own arc, especially with Aunt May dying.
Yes.
And so on top of everything else, on top of him having to solve this mess that he kind of created in a bit of a backwards way, and him, we see his moral character forming by the fact that he wants to save these villains and everything, and we see him really coming into his own, stepping out of the shadow of the Avengers, but still being a part of the team when they need him. But he's his own character more than he ever was.
Exactly, and Tom Holland himself said Spider-Man wouldn't be Spider-Man if he didn't create most of the problems himself and then have to solve it, and he always kind of screws himself trying to do the right thing constantly. So I like that they really played off that, even after Aunt May dies, she tells him, we made the right choice, Peter, and he's still just we still have to save them, and he's broken. He wants to kill Green Goblin, he wants to go at it, but he's still we need to do the right thing here.
Oh yeah, it was definitely, because when I was looking at it for the one kind of thing I saw was Tom Holland was that's a dark movie, and I was like, it is. It's not dark as in people die everywhere. It's just kind of it's a very deep kind of character movie, and it's great. that's what I liked about it so much. You know, of course, and then seeing my boy Charlie Cox come back.
Oh
my
I was
gosh,
so stoked, dude.
I've never
love
even
that so
seen
much.
Daredevil, and I thought that was cool.
man! Like both my brother and sister leaned over me. Who was that? I was like, that's Daredevil.
Oh, dude, and I was getting told like by sources beforehand on stuff because like Will knows too. Like I'm more like into the comic sources of like YouTube channels and stuff like that. You know, is like I had multiple people telling me when No Way Home was first being produced, like, hey, long shot Daredevil might appear, but Netflix rights still have a hold on it.
Yeah.
And then when they were doing reshoots, they're like, Charlie Cox was on site, you know, and then they're like in Hawkeye. I mean, small spoiler for Hawkeye, but they're like, hey, they're gonna do Kingpin in Hawkeye episode 5, and then they're gonna have No Way Home right after with Daredevil. And I'm like, no, they won't. So yeah, definitely.
This
Just a great
like all of
addition.
this stuck the landing so well because it did end a day after or happen a day after that Hawkeye episode with the Kingpin reference.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you know, we've seen movies, Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 2, that had a villain problem where they tried to balance too many villains.
Yeah.
And that was not the problem here. They had too many villains and they made it work so well. On paper, this movie sounds like it would be terrible. You got too many Spider-Men, too many villains, too much of everything going on. But it might be the best MCU movie.
yeah,
It just might. We were talking about that, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure where I land. 'Cause I want to watch it a few more times. I want to let it set in because I've always said Infinity War is the best one. This might overtake it. I don't know.
Yeah,
This
I
might
definitely
it.
agree with that. I have to see it a couple more times first.
same here. But it just that's what I like. Like I was saying earlier, it's what I liked about it the most was that it didn't feel like an MCU movie, other than Doctor Strange being there. You know what I mean? It just felt like a Spider-Man movie, and that's what I liked about it so much. You know, the whole the kind of switching of him finally getting told with great power comes great responsibility. And it's like, that's what it is. That's what Spider-Man is all about. And we had not been told that, where I didn't see any of the consequences in his other movies. It was just kind of little things. And in this one, it was huge. It's big. It's
Yeah,
a
that's
huge
true.
thing. So now that to me was so great. And I don't know like where it would rank because I still got to watch most of the MCU again. I've been trying to rewatch them, but I just haven't.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, this is definitely up there though.
Yeah, I did see somebody make a comment to where one of the criticisms of the Tom Holland trilogy is like they skip past the origin story, which I mean, you kind of had a double-edged sword. Some people are like, we don't want another origin story.
Yeah.
We've had 3 Spider-Man origin stories, but the other ones are like, we kind of need that. With No Way Home now, if you go back and watch the entire trilogy, like the entire trilogy is his origin story. Like it is the longest Spider-Man origin story to where I personally like, I'm a fan of the entire trilogy, you know, like I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, like down to the comics to where I know like the minor villains. When they brought in the Vulture for the first one, especially Michael Keaton, and made him like a working class man, I loved it. When they brought in Mysterio's my favorite villain. So like, I thought they did a really good job. I do agree that they went a little heavy on like, hey, he's in the MCU, just do not forget. Like I like a lot of the references, but there were times where it's kind of like, hey, this was the right balance. Like Doctor Strange was there to set the stakes. He went away for a little bit. He came back at the pivotal moment to set up
Yeah.
his own movement. That's all we needed.
Because that's what I think. Because I've always sung the praises of Iron Man 3, even pre the Mandarin stuff from Shang-Chi. Because one thing that I think is really good about it is that it's an Iron Man movie. It's not an Avengers plus Iron Man or anything. It's like it's just solely it's him doing his own stuff, and you don't have to know where Nick Fury is or Thor or anything. You're just focusing on Iron Man, and that's what this felt like. It felt like. Yeah, the other stuff is in the background, and it's cleverly there. There's like they're putting the shield onto the Statue of Liberty,
Yeah.
which I think is so stupid, and that's perfectly comic, like MCU.
The new improved statue,
Yeah,
if we will.
So there's all kinds of things like that are like, yeah, it is in the MCU, and it very much feels like an MCU movie, but it's more a Spider-Man movie than an MCU movie. Same way that Iron Man 3 is more Iron Man than MCU. And I think that's much needed here because he needed to kind of break out of that shell so that it can finally be put to rest. All these people who are like, I don't like that he just feels like a baby Tony Stark. I don't like that he gets all his help from everybody else. Whenever he needs help, he can just call up Happy Hogan or Tony and just get help. It's like, no, now he doesn't have that anymore. He did this on his own with 3 of himself, but he did it on his own, and he doesn't need that help.
Dude, when they showed that sewing machine with the fabric at the very end of the movie, and I was like, oh, finally he's making his own thing. And then
Yes.
they show that final shot, like me and my friend Gabe looked at each other, and I'm like, dude, that is the most comic accurate, not just Spider-Man suit, but probably the most comic accurate suit I've ever seen put to film. Like, it's just so nice. But
Yeah.
like,
I was like, why is no one cheering for this? Look at that suit. Look at that suit. Look at this ending. Oh, man. Yeah. So,
Because we also finally got him swinging as an ending, which they always did in like the Raimi movies. They did that as a send off, I think, in Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
And it's like that was also kind of lacking. So this is really like now he's Spider-Man. Look at him. Look at him go. He's Spider-Man. Like,
And it was, again, it just left it on a perfect balance to where it's like this felt like the end of the high school trilogy. It left it open for the college trilogy, but it also like it just did so well. You know, it felt like this could be a Spider-Man 5 if you didn't watch the Tom Holland movies and just watch Tobey Maguire's 1 and 2 and Andrew Garfield's 1 and 2 and then pick this up right away. You could still get the gist of everything. You might have to watch Far From Home, but like it totally just links up perfectly. The villains weren't thrown in there as a cash grab. They were thrown in there for a purpose.
Yeah.
which is a great point. I think we should talk about those villains.
Yes.
So I think I want to hit the minor ones first. The Lizard was good. He was as good as ever, but
yeah,
he was
in
just,
there.
He was in there. I wish at some point he'd worn a lab coat.
Dude.
Because that's his comic costume.
I didn't even think about that.
And they were even wearing lab coats at some point earlier in the movie, and I was like, the Lizard's going to get one of those. And he didn't, but I was like, whatever. You know what? Who cares?
They did tone up his looks, though. He looked way better than he did in the first Spider-Man
he looked
movie.
less like a Goomba and more like a lizard.
And the Lizard was good, but definitely minor. Same thing with the Sandman. It was great to see him again. I loved seeing him in there, but he was definitely falls to the lower tier of all the villains just because he just wasn't in it as much, I feel like.
And I was fine with it, though, because they left his arc. Like, my whole question that me and you kept talking about going into this was, why is Sandman even in it? Like, if they're posing it like, oh, the villains that fought Spider-Man and died fighting Spider-Man, he didn't die fighting Spider-Man. And then they change it even in the movie, like, oh, it's the villains that knew who Peter Parker was Spider-Man. I'm like, that makes more sense, but then why would he be fighting him? But they did it so well to where, again, his whole motive is still like, I just want to get back to my daughter. I don't know what's going on. I'm confused. I just want to go. And as soon as he sees bad stuff happen, he's like, dude, screw this. I'm out. Like, I'm just going to fight however I can to get back home.
Yeah.
So it was faithful to both of them in the sense of like the Sandman didn't feel like he was losing anything. He was still just going after trying to just get home, get back to his family, and that was great.
Him and Electro's banter.
Yeah.
How'd you get your powers? I fell into a vat of Eos. How'd you get your powers? I fell into a quantum stabilizer. Damn. Gotta watch where you're falling. It was great. And speaking on that, Electro, dude. Like,
Electro.
I think your brother put it best. He was a total Chad in this movie, and I loved it.
He was fun. He felt like Jamie Foxx.
Yeah. Jamie Foxx with electricity.
Like it didn't
Literal
feel like he didn't feel all weak and feeble and dumb like he was in the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
It was like this is just him embracing it.
But they did still call back those ties. Like, towards the end, when Andrew Garfield sees him when he's drained of power, he's like, Max, like, come on. And he's like, nah, get away from me. Like, and he's like, dude, I just wanted to help you. Like, they still play like that sympathetic moment where it's like, most of these Spider-Man villains aren't bad people. They were just put in bad circumstances. But
Yeah, that's true.
giving Electro that electric halo blew my mind on stuff. I was so happy. But then you get to the bigger two, obviously, the ones that everybody flipped out about when they were first announced.
Yeah, you got Doc Ock, who was as great as ever.
Yeah.
He was what made that first trailer stand out immediately. We were like, oh, this is like a fun movie. Then we were like, oh,
That's
look
what
at
gave me chills.
Look at that. I saw that trailer right after I got into my car accident. And Brandon walked away, was with me, and he walked away to go watch the trailer while we're waiting for the tow truck. And then he came back over, and I'd be lying if I didn't also go watch the trailer.
Dude, I had to maintain my calm too because I'm flipping out with my friend, and then I walk back up and I'm just like, "Hey, is everybody okay over here?" Will, the trailer came out, so we're good. Like, let's go watch this. So all right, we'll be right back. Like,
Yeah, we gotta go take care of something real fast.
Insurance,
I gotta go call my doctor, Doctor Strange, that is.
but no, I like that they gave Doc Ock his arc and they continued it because I was also like, okay, so he's evil again. I guess they're gonna negate when he turned good at the end of the second one, but then no, they were like, no, we're still gonna keep this storyline going on everything. But Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, dude.
Oh my gosh. The best. Oh my gosh.
I already thought he was great in Spider-Man 1. Like, he's already one of the best parts of the Raimi trilogy as is, and this was that dialed up to 11.
And he's the definite main villain of the film.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
he's the reason for a lot of the impactful stuff that happens. But his suit with that tattered hoodie, dude, when he got on the glider with the purple tattered hoodie, turned around and just had that smile. It's like, that is everything I wanted. He was already great, but that's like, it brought a tear to my eye, dude. I was just like, oh my God. And his whole circumstance, I don't know if you know, Jordan, but like his whole thing, they approached him to come back and he's like, I'll come back on 2 conditions. I want to be the main villain of the film, and I have to do all my own stunts for this film.
I heard about the stunts thing.
Yeah, they're like, Willem, you're 66. And he's like, I have to do my own stunts. They're like, all right, whatever, dude. You're the GOAT.
I just love how he just wrecks Spider-Man 2 in the apartment. Like, he messes him up. I was like, my gosh.
And then
This
when he's
guy's not
getting...
to be messed with.
Sorry.
Don't go for it.
And then when he's getting messed up, he's like laughing and cackling when Peter's beating the crap out of him. And he's just, like, oh, chills, dude. It was such a great performance by everybody.
And then the inverse of that is when he's just Norman Osborn and he's not the Goblin and he's just so sad and broken.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, this poor guy. He was like, I don't know. There's somebody living in my house. Nobody knows what Oscorp is. I don't know where my son. And I was like, no, this poor guy.
Yeah, for real.
But also kill him. Like it's this perfect balance of exactly what it is. It's a split personality kind of thing, and he did that so
He flipped
well.
it. Yeah, perfectly every
That
time.
switch just on.
And even at the end on the final battle and stuff, like I really like that Toby thing because a lot of people are like, wow, like he saved Tom Holland from going super dark, but I'm like, it's bigger than that. He saved himself, but like in Toby's Spider-Man 1, he didn't mean for Green Goblin to die. Like Norman Osborn was quote unquote like a father to him. They hit you over the head with that in that movie. And so when he gets out of the way of the glider, it's purely out of spider sense. So this was in a way his redemption arc, just like Andrew Garfield got his saving MJ and it's like his redemption for Gwen. This was Toby's where it's like, I'm going to save an alternate version of myself from going super dark, but at the same time, I'm going to save the man that I couldn't save before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a man that he didn't deserve to die. A man who, because Toby knows Harry Osborn and he knows the damage that did to him, so he didn't want to see him die again. He couldn't go through that again. So it was fantastic. So talking about redeeming moments, you talked about it a second ago, but like Andrew Garfield saving MJ.
That one, oh my gosh! Because say what you will about Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not that great.
Yeah,
I've said it before; it's not great.
It's not
but
that good.
That moment in that movie is it's really well done and heartbreaking. And to see him redeem himself and tear up, you're just like, oh,
Because he makes the
Yeah.
same face.
Yeah, like I like that he didn't just do the cliche, like, okay, Goddard, let's go. Like he stops for a second
Yeah.
and they stay there for
It
like
has a
10,
moment,
20
yeah.
seconds and he just sits like, are you sure you're okay? Like, are you
And then she asks him if he's okay.
Yeah.
And I
she
opened-
can tell how beaten up he is. And it's even fleshed out because you know from just watching the amazing movies in the first place that this is already how they end. But then he talks about it too. Right
Yeah.
after our Peter loses Aunt May, they have that little rooftop conversation between the three of them where he talks about how ever since Gwen died, he's been more bitter and more just like messed up and less optimistic. So this saved that too. This is
Yeah.
like he needed this. As much as she needed to be saved, he needed to save her. And I thought that was just so well done. I was just so happy to see him back. I really was. I was so happy to see him
Because we've
back.
both been an advocate, like, say what we want about the actual Amazing Spider-Man movies. They're
Yeah.
both but it's because the story gets too tied down. Take away everything and have the first one, just the parts of Lizard versus Spider-Man and his developing arc. It's amazing. The second one, if you just have Spider-Man and Electro, it's amazing. That's why I'm glad they brought them back. It's because they try throwing in, like, Peter Parker's parents might still be alive, and, like, there's Oscorp in the background, and we're going to set up the Sinister Six but not tell you anything, and Paul Giamatti's going to be in a rhino suit, and, like, yeah, it was all over.
And you got Harry Osborn and Peter's parents made the spiders and all
Yeah.
kinds of
Yeah.
It's like so bogged down.
But like with this, you got to see Andrew Garfield truly, because you've even made the comment in your past thing, like his version felt more of the bully than being bullied, and in this one he felt so nerdy along the rest of them. Like when they're having the moment in the labs, talking about their web fluid, talking about all that stuff, which we all wanted, but how they just kept going back to it and making it so realistic, where it's no, they wouldn't just get over like, oh, yours is natural. No, they'd go back to it later and be like, so like, how does it develop? Like, do you get blockage?
Does
like,
that come out of anywhere else?
And when he first comes through the portal, when Ned opens up a portal, nuts. But when Ned opens up a portal and he comes through it, like the first thing he does after he calms down Ned's angry grandmother is he starts talking and he's like, wow, so like string theory and quantum thing and multiverse, it's all real. They're like, yeah, and he's
Yeah.
like, I knew it. Like so and so they aren't afraid to just like remind you that yes, he's also nerdy and smart the way that the other two are.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get a lot of that. We get small scenes of him being smart in the Amazing movies, but not nearly enough to make us really believe it. And now we do see it. We see him doing some smart stuff, and it's much needed.
Oh yeah.
I like how meta they got with some of the memery. Like, Marvel definitely knows their fan base. When Willem Dafoe leans against the thing, he's like, hey, Parker, I could help you because, I'm something of a scientist myself. Almost our whole theater started cracking up.
like,
We were like, yeah, there we
Same.
go.
That's
Or
it.
like, we were all waiting, let's be real, we were all waiting for the pointing meme to happen, but they
Yeah,
did it
but-
twice. They did it once in the lab where they're like, Peter, and they all look up, they're like, Peter Parker? They're like, we are. They're like, no, our Peter, and they're all pointing. And then again, when they're fighting on the battle and stuff, he's like, I'm Peter 2. He's like, no, you're Peter 2. And he's like, I thought I was Peter 1. He's like, no, he's Peter 1. He's like, so you're Peter, like, yeah.
And then how Andrew's
my
happy
gosh.
to be Peter 3.
Yeah.
Peter 3, all right.
Oh, I'm the lame Spider-Man. You guys have fought aliens? Like,
And I like that a lot too. That it was them kind of looking into the camera lens, but also just like acknowledging that no, you weren't the lame Spider-Man. You were great in your own way.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be brushed off to the wayside for it. And it was Toby, who has always been lauded as the best Spider-Man, telling it to Andrew, the one who was lauded as the worst one. You know. And so I thought that was really nice. You know, I thought it was really, really nice.
Yeah, because that's the one thing that we've always said, like what we talked about in the Spider-Man. It's like Andrew Garfield was great as Spider-Man. We loved him as that. But it's just the movies were bad. So
Poorly written movie, but he's good in it.
it's good, yeah.
it's
Because
like
he
the
loved
Venom
being
ones.
the role.
Tom Hardy's great. The Venom movies are trash, though. But no,
We'll come back to that.
yeah. Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that.
So one thing that like what for me, like I told Will this the other day when we met up and talked. It was just like something about the MCU lately has been bothering me is that joke after joke, no serious moments really have a time to land. This movie did it well.
Yeah.
Whereas when I thought Peter was visiting Aunt May's grave and Happy Hogan comes up, I thought there were gonna be like a little bit of jokes or something thrown in there, but it was a serious moment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there
great.
were no jokes at all. It was just like a tender, emotional moment.
Yeah, and then like when everyone's about to forget him, I was like, man,
Yeah, and they raised the question. They're like, because he's like, well, how'd you know her? He's like, through Spider-Man. It's like, so you don't remember Peter Parker, but you do remember Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is gonna get real interesting for the future. But this movie hit several emotional notes, dude. Like I knew
Yeah, so many.
we all love hearing the line with great power comes great responsibility, but I'm going to be 100% honest. I literally leaned forward in the theater when she started saying it because I'm like, when she got hit by the glider, all of us are like, oh, she's dead. She dead. That thing stabbed her. Like, there's no human that's going to get her. Then she gets up and walks it off, and all of us are like, okay, comic book logic, I guess, you know? And then she lays back down and says it, and I was like, oh, they're going to kill her. That's a kill line. In all three versions, that's the kill line.
yeah.
Yeah, you only say that if you're gonna die in the next minute. My Aunt May, don't finish that sentence. You're gonna die.
But again, like even like going back to it after her death, like you see the battles before and it was true like Spider-Man, like acrobatics and stuff, but like the final battle was very like Tom Holland was very up close and personal with the villains. Like he was just taking out his anger. And I do like even with the fighting stuff, it wasn't just cliche comic, oh, they're all Spider-Man, so they're all great. Like they sucked at fighting with each other at first. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's a moment like Tom springs the web and then Andrew gets clotheslined by him and then shoots Toby in the face and they have to regroup. It's like, I like they take that moment to even like still have some sort of logic where they're like, no, they need to talk this through and figure out how they're going to fight.
Because Toby and Andrew are both like, we've never had to do this as a group before. And Tom's like, okay, I did. It's all right. I was with the Avengers. Maybe you've heard of them. And they're like, the Avengers, who's that? Are you in like a band? And I thought that was so fun. Like it was so good because like they don't have the Avengers in their universes. They're just guys, you know. And so I just love that too.
Oh yeah, a lot of fun. Just like me coming into it as still a little bit like okay, still MCU. I'm a little skeptical because that's just me now. But man, I was just so happy to see all these moments and to finally feel like okay, I'm excited. I'm not excited for the MCU, more for Spider-Man. I'm excited to see more Spider-Man, and I hope he does get more movies like this where it's him. I don't mind seeing him in the bigger stuff, but I really just was so happy coming out of this. Like the whole movie, big smile on my face.
Oh, the whole time.
I was like, oh my gosh.
I'm real curious, just because like I know like again like you said like MCU fatigue and stuff. Like me and Will are more like into the MCU, but I also like know like certain stuff behind the scenes. John Watts, the director of the Homecoming trilogy, is going to be the director for the Fantastic Four franchise.
Yeah.
And in the comics, Spider-Man's first appearance is with the Fantastic Four, and they've already confirmed Tom Holland has one more shared appearance. So I'm wondering if he's going to show up in the Fantastic Four movies like the bombastic Bagman now that they set this up.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, would you be hyped for that?
I
At
would
least, 'cause
be.
the Fantastic Four MCU is going to be great, but like if they throw a Spider-Man cameo in there, dude.
Yeah, I think that's if looking at everything, it's like okay, Fantastic Four. I'm still excited about it. If they bring X-Men into, okay,
Yeah.
I'm excited for those because I love those even like the 2000 mid 2000s movies. I enjoyed
feel
them.
I hope with X-Men they do the same thing where it's like you have Wolverine, you have Gambit, you have other stuff like solo movies, and then an X-Men movie to where it's like the Avengers version of a movie. Like, instead of just going X-Men at once. But I mean, they could do it either way. But I want to see an X-Men versus Avengers film. We're getting off topic, but still, I would love to see that.
That would be
Anyways,
amazing.
though, but
So I've never seen the X-Men movies.
oh no!
I've never seen the
that's
first
my
one in
2
theaters
cents.
too with my dad.
So Will just committed blasphemy.
Yes,
Yeah,
he's
I'll-
now off the
I'm-
podcast.
I'll go leave. I'm sorry. This is
Welcome, I am your new co-host. Just kidding.
so.
But you're right. I think I was telling you about a lot of them. I was like, there's some that are great and there's some that are okay.
Yeah, definitely. They're very hit and miss. Like
Yeah.
the Spider-Man movies have a consistent fluidity, at least. Like getting back on topic, but like the X-Men movies are very hit and miss.
Yeah, so we'll get into those.
Yeah, I
Maybe
hear
I'll
that they
jump in here and there.
the MCU's Ralph Boner in there as Quicksilver for some
Thank you
reason.
for giving Jordan a credit on the MCU fatigue because I was pissed about that.
Yes, that's yeah.
No.
All the yeah. Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, is this movie? I had so many people hitting me up when we were getting out of the theater. Like I have a lot of friends that are gonna go see it, but pretty much anybody who knows me is like, hey, you're the Spider-Man aficionado. So I have a bunch of people like, hey, can we hang out sometime this week and talk about it? Because normal people don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
I need to talk to you. And I'm like, are you not calling me normal? Like I'm like Toby in the movie. Like, are you teasing me for this? When they're asking about the web fluid, it's like, are you shaming me? You know? But
Yeah, because Jordan, I remember that you had said to me that you're like, oh, because we were talking about it. We were like, do we want to do a 3-way episode for this?
Yeah.
Or do you want to just be me and Brandon? You were like, I don't know. I'll see how I feel after I see the movie. I'm not sure. And so then you text. I got out of the theater and had a text waiting where you're like, I'll be on the episode.
had to have 3 people for the 3 Spider-Man episode.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is
I
kind of
love
a
it.
multiversal episode in its
Yeah.
own right. You know,
It's amazing.
it's the old format meets the new.
Yes.
Exactly.
So good. Yeah.
But this movie was a perfect balance. It balanced concluding old storylines. It balanced opening new storylines. It balanced keeping in the MCU while giving Spider-Man his own thing. So many people I know that were skeptical of Tom Holland have come out of this movie being like, hey, I still like Toby, I still like Andrew, but I'm not going to lie, I'm really excited for Tom Holland's future. Like, I
Yeah.
like him a lot now. And I'm like, see, I've always liked Tom Holland more just because, again, comics. But I'm glad to see more and more people like Toby and Andrew are great. They're top notch. But after this movie, this dude is our Spider-Man.
Yeah, definitely. It feels redeeming for, of course, like Garfield and even for Spider-Man 3. You
Yeah,
had a little bit of
honestly.
redemption for that. and you're
Yeah.
like, this is getting and hearing him talk about it, like, oh yeah, it's complicated, but we found a way to work it out with him
Yeah.
and MJ. I was like,
Yes!
Yeah, that made me so happy.
good. I'm glad.
Well, because like the last scene in Spider-Man, it's super underrated, but like him and MJ, like they don't kiss and make up and it's not all cheesy. Like they stand apart from each other and they're kind of uneasy. Like, okay, we're together.
Yeah,
Like,
and just kinda
what
dancing,
now?
you're like-
Yeah, they're like distantly dancing away. But it's just, it also opened up for Doctor Strange, because we know Multiverse of Madness is it's like, okay, you fixed the multiverse. I don't get how you're going to do that. But no, they sent altered villains back. So now they didn't just screw their universe, they screwed all the universes.
Yeah.
So now you gave the opening where it's like, hey, Strange, you thought you fixed this? No.
Not even close. So I'm also pretty excited for that too. Just to like jump into it. I don't know how you're feeling there, Jordan, but like I'm excited for it because like I loved WandaVision. And I'm excited to see more of that. And I've always liked Doctor Strange, and I like him more with each appearance. I
Yeah.
think. I thought that the first Doctor Strange movie was good. It didn't disappoint me, but it wasn't exceptional either. He was great in all of the combo movies, like his appearance in Thor Ragnarok, and him in the Infinity War, especially, and a little bit in Endgame. And then in here, I was like, yes. He was such a perfect role in here where he didn't overstate at all. He wasn't the star. He wasn't even a co-star, or even he was just a background character.
Yeah.
But it was a perfect blending for him. Where I'm like, I can't wait to see more of him.
And
know?
that Doctor Strange Spider-Man fight, dude. Like we haven't talked about that. That was an amazing
Yeah.
sequence. Like each Spider-Man movie has great fight choreography, but like this one just blew my mind, dude. Because again, we balanced the mystical, trippy fight along with a super up close and personal fight later in the film.
Yeah.
But I like that when he's fighting Doctor Strange, he's like, wait, that's a Archimedes sphere. This is geometry. I know geometry. Like they hit back again. Like no, Spider-Man's smart. It's basic math. Like
Yeah.
math beats even magic, I guess.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I was like, oh, he's going to get whooped by Doctor Strange. Are you kidding me? But I was like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
he just beat him by math. Cool.
He
I
won.
really like that. Yeah. I was like, that's nice. But real quick, going back to the end fight, listening, because I listened to the music a lot. And in that moment, it was Return of the Jedi. When he's hitting Darth Vader and it's this ominous kind of just like dark sounding music, it's that. And I was like, my gosh, this is beautiful. And now I have that song. I'm
Yeah,
listening to it all the
dude.
time. And it's just this dark moment. And it's because he's just been pummeling, Green Goblin. And that's what it reminded me a lot of was that moment in Return of the Jedi where Luke's just hammering down on Darth Vader, and he's the Emperor's like, yes.
I feel that, and especially that's another thing. I had somebody who got to see the screening early come back and be like, "Hey, man, no spoilers, but like." The music producer went way harder than they needed to, and so I was paying attention. And again, like if you notice when Doc Ock and Green Goblin appear, it's the Toby stuff, like the drums and stuff, like the
and then that bass sound for Electro came in real briefly, but it was in there. It's like that's nice.
Like you have the like it was really cool. And then again, when they're all three on screen together, I wonder how that's gonna sound. But like when all three are together, they blended all of their musics together perfectly. Like it was amazing. Through and through, like every single part of this movie was top notch, man.
Yeah, and I didn't want it to come on here, and I wanted it to be balanced, but it's like I'm gushing about it now. Yeah. I'm still a little hesitant because like I've listened to you guys and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's all they're doing is gushing about the MCU. Now I'm like, I gotta throw some balance in there. But it's like, nope, I'm gonna do it too. So,
you gotta gush, man. You gotta gush.
Because it was so good. Because I would challenge you to find something negative about this movie. I'm so happy. I wouldn't change anything about this.
One very, very, very minor thing that again isn't necessarily a negative. It's more of like standard formula and stuff, especially Spider-Man movies. It's like each act has some sort of fight and stuff. Act 2 starts when Andrew appears in the portal, and the whole Act 2 is them like describing, pretty much catching up Toby and Andrew to the universe and stuff. And then Act 3 is when the big fight starts. They don't have any action in Act 2, so like I like that, but it was also like it was definitely more drawn out.
It's a problem with the pacing a little bit. Whereas that part is drawn out, and then the end is kind of rushed a little bit.
Yeah,
so you feel it a little bit, but it's not a huge problem.
I'll say I didn't personally notice it. I've even because me and you've even talked about this, Brandon, and it just didn't do much for me. It was just like I didn't notice it. Like I didn't notice the pacing issues at all, and I think it was just so much of just like I'm just happy to see them on screen that I'm not noticing it. So maybe it'll flesh itself out more on multiple rewatches. But that first time around, I was like, I can't believe that was 2 hours and 45 minutes. Like,
it's gonna be like in game to where when you watch it again, you're like, okay, this is 3 hours long.
Yeah,
but it's not gonna be as bad, I don't think. You'll be like, oh, it's still great.
It's like I feel again like. It's not necessarily saying I would change this. Like, this movie is a top-tier perfection movie. It's just like, again, if somebody were to nitpick, this is the only thing they would, to where it's like, the final battle, again, it was kind of rushed where it was amazing, but instead of having it melded where they can't fight together one moment and they can the next, have the second act, they all appear, they have some sort of villain show up, they have to fight, and they can't defeat the villain because they can't work together, and then the final battle, they can work together. Like, that would have been the only minor change I would have made. But again, I'm not trying to make that. I'm not part of Marvel or anything. And again, this is, after one watch, already cracking most people's list for the best Spider-Man movie. So after multiple rewatches, I would not be shocked if it cracks mine too, especially as a Spider-Man fan.
Because I've been a huge fan of Spider-Man 2. That's still my favorite. But we'll see after I watch it again and be like, okay, maybe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
heck yeah.
Oh, well, real quick, let's talk about the little black goo left there at the end credits.
Yeah, sure.
Mid credits.
I'm a little in my own way. I wish we'd gotten to see Tom Hardy and Tom Holland face off, or at least interact in some way here, even if it wasn't much. But like, just to show Tom Holland that, oh, you thought you were done. There was a guy you didn't even know about. You know, like I would have loved something, but I also know that they are leaving the door wide open for more stuff to keep happening, and that we aren't done yet. Because I know that you specifically said that the guy behind Venom has said that there will be a crossover of them eventually.
Yeah. And I agree, is instead of having Tom Hardy talk to the bartender to get caught up, you could have easily just had it been Tom Holland at a restaurant or something, him talking to him, because they left the Venom 2 where it's like he's going to go to New York and find him. Instead of having him still in Mexico, could have had him talk to Tom Holland, get the same exact spiel, like, so there was a purple guy who snapped their fingers and all this, and then right after he gets it, have Venom disappear, and Tom Hardy's like, oh no, and then still have that black goo, and that even further implies like, oh, Tom Holland's right there, the black goo just went like, oh, that would have been cool. But I'm still happy we got it.
It was still great to see him in there.
So good, yeah.
It was just like, man, this is a movie packed with fan service, but it didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
It was
the right
fan
way.
service all for the right reasons.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like the Han Solo movie where Darth Maul just shows up at the end for no reason and just pulls out a lightsaber, and we're just like, hey, that's dumb. Like, I know he's alive because I watched Clone Wars, but like, why is this in this movie? You know, that it wasn't this. Every piece of fan service in here was well earned, well deserved, and serviced the story.
Yeah, it was a redeeming thing.
And I think, genuinely, I think it's because everybody in this movie cared. They cared about what the fans would do, but they also cared about doing these characters service. Andrew had something he wanted to answer for. Toby knew people wanted him back. Tom Holland finally had to solidify his stuff. Marvel, again, knows that fans at this point were getting Marvel fatigue, so they're like, hey, how can we balance this out more? Like, there were a lot of aspects going into this where, again, Willem Dafoe insisted. He's like, I will not go back. They're like, dude, it's dangerous for you to do your own stunts. And he's like, I don't care. Like, I want to do it. Alfred Molina coming back, like, where are my arms? And they're like, it's CG now. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm just in it for the money then. Like, he made that joke, but sincerely, like, they all came back and put their all. They didn't just come back for a brief appearance to like, hey, here we are, you wanted it. They came back and were like, if we're coming back, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And they did it.
And they did it. They did.
And we technically have not gotten Sinister 6 yet, so...
Yeah.
We'll get
Yeah, that was more like
Mysterio's still out there.
that was more like the Frightful Five.
I was trying to come up with names for it, too, and I was like, something stupid. I was like, oh, Will probably do something.
Yeah. Will got it.
I did. That's what I do. They just keep me on here for the dumb jokes.
Nah, we'll get a Sinister 6 eventually. I mean, you still got the Morbius movie coming out. You know Vulture will link up for that.
Yeah.
Mysterio's still out there because he's not dead. I will fight you on that. He's not dead.
Dead and
But
buried, dead and buried.
anyways, we could debate that all day. But anyways, I feel like they're working up to building another version, especially towards the end of the movie when the universe is cracking. I caught a Rhino outline.
Yeah,
I caught a Scorpion outline. I caught a Morbius outline. People were seeing, like our friend Gabe said, he saw Thor's dad Bor. Like, there's tons and tons of silhouettes. We need to watch this movie again and see. But they definitely let Spider-Man be his own universe coming forward, where it's like he's going to be way more centric. He'll be in the MCU, but it's going to be way more Spider-Man centered.
Oh, yeah. Excited for that.
Yeah.
MCU rest stuff, okay. But
Yeah,
Spider-Man, I'm excited for.
They said he's going to be the most important character moving forward. He is, as much as we make the joke, he's little Iron Man, he's Tony Stark. Like they've said, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and Captain Marvel are the most pivotal moving forward for the characers. So it's like I'm excited to see this.
Well, 2 out of 3 isn't bad.
Yeah, right.
I got you.
I was like, oh,
I'm usually not that quick on my
I'll let
feet.
Jordan talk. I don't want to cut him off and pull the rug out from under me. But yeah, so this was just fantastic. This has been the year of Marvel with some great shows, some fine movies, some movies that average out to being okay. But this movie, just cherry on top of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Like this has been a crap year everywhere else in the world and
But we still
politically.
got the Matrix Resurrections coming out.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It's not going to be better than this, but I do want to see it. Sorry. Go for it.
Oh no, I'm not even saying anything important. But this was just great.
Oh,
way
yeah.
just a great way to end the year.
What a Christmas gift.
I got to go see Matrix Resurrections. I got to go watch Die Hard for Christmas. I got a lot of stuff to do here.
Yeah. I got to watch Jingle All the Way again.
I don't have to go watch Die Hard because it's not a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas
yes.
movie, but
We will talk about that.
yeah.
We're in
I
disagreement.
actually listened to your guys' episode on that. That's why I'm debating this. I'm like, we need to have an episode, an updated episode on like what is the parameters of a holiday movie because I vastly disagree, dude. But no, I could gush about this all day. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I literally have a wall of Spider-Man paintings in my room that I've done. But like, I can't really say much more that I'm not just being redundant on.
Yeah, I've been spewing out Spider-Man posters lately too, and I was like, okay.
I've seen them though. Those are fantastic. Been noticing them.
Oh yeah, man, it's just makes for some great artwork there. But anyway, all right, so yeah, you can of course follow us on Instagram. You'll get all the news and what we're going to be making. I'm hoping to do more stuff with our actual Jordan J and Buddies podcast Instagram because right now I just post like, hey, there's a new episode and this one's coming soon. So hopefully we could do more. You guys got anything to plug? I know Will probably doesn't.
Just Instagram like normal. Canva Butter, CanvaButter. I sell paintings, post food. I sell Spider-Man paintings. That's relevant. So
Hey,
yeah,
tie-in.
right. But that's pretty much
You
it.
can just find me here. I got nothing to plug. As usual,
Will
for the
be
past
back
2
next-
years, I'm just hanging out.
Will Newcomb will return in the next episode.
Yes.
And of course, mine, my poster design artwork at Jordan James B. And my photography stuff at Jordan J. Begay. My gosh. But yeah, other than that, leave us a rating on Apple. Listen, I don't know. We got a huge spike in plays one day. We got like 200 and something in one day. I have no idea where it came from.
Dude, nice.
It's like, I don't know where this came from, but I'm
love
okay. Yeah, it's all right. So
I just bought 200 phones the other day, by the way. Just to let you know. So-
Like and subscribe on YouTube.
yes, that too.
YouTube also.
Subscribe on YouTube.
Ring the bell. I don't know. Rate 5 stars. Is it still 2007? I don't know.
20 yep. Jeez. All right,
no.
let's start the outro.
It was a weird way to pull the rug out to just have a trailer as the second end credit scene. I
Yeah.
was happy with it, but I was like,
That's what they did for the
Where's the
first
credit
Avengers
scene, though?
movie.
Like-
That's exactly what they
In the
did.
Captain America, they had the
Oh, that's
first
true.
Avengers movie.
That's
But
true.
still, like,
so it will be on the DVD release then. Me and you were talking about that.
But I wish that they could have at least had the conversation of like Strange talking to Wanda as the conversation, had that as a scene, and then drop the teaser next week. You didn't have to drop a trailer.
But,
Either way,
but it was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was nice. And
And
all
that
that.
was the outro. I'm so sorry.
You good.
But that's